The next tutorial, we will create this red arm here of the truck. You may, if I can get it to work, you'll see when you come to the assembly process, we can do things like this. We can actually create and simulate motion or mechanical movement of an object. So to create this red part, it's quite similar in the way we draw it to this, but it starts to get a little bit more complex now as we move into the next few parts. So again, click on the plus and press Create Part Studio. You got a new one, rename it, and we'll call it Red Arm. Same as always, I'm going to draw out a rectangle. This is quite a long, thin rectangle. So remember, using the mouse, you can roll in and roll out. So roll back so you can see a little bit more of the screen. Pull the rectangle out, and I believe it's 140. I can't quite remember, but it doesn't really matter. Press 140 for the first dimension, press enter, and I think the width of it is about 25. Now you may have noticed on that part it's got these round edges, okay, which are semicircles on the edge. So to do that, very simply, click on the circle, or you could use an arc tool. I just use the circle tool. Find the center and just draw to the edge. Do the same. Back here, draw in the holes in the middle now. 12. 12. I need a center line. Okay. It does find the middle for you, but again, I just like to draw these lines so I can see visually where I am and so on. This is just a construction line, so again, I'm going to move the cursor up to the menu where it says construction, click on it, and it will change it to a dashed line and bring it across to the other side, the center. Like I did with the long part, yeah, that's how we drew that. I'm going to just now drop circles. So if you look, if you go back to the actual object, you'll see it has holes here, and it has these long, oblong sort of shapes, and then it has a central hole and the same. So let's go back to the red arm. There's a circle tool. There's one in the middle, so I'm going to find the middle of this line. Click and drag. So I know that's definitely in the right place, it's in the center. And to create these oblong sort of shapes here, I'm going to just draw, don't want it to be a construction line, so we'll back up here, make sure it's a solid line. I'm going to enter 12 here, then I'm going to zoom in on here so you can see what I'm doing. And then I can use the dimension tool, if I can find it, dimension tool. Click on this point and click on that point. And we want it to be probably about 30. And the same for here, from here, the center to here, so we have the same distance away. Might be actually a little bit different. Doesn't look, looks a bit too short for me. So let's move that back to 25. Move this back to 25. Use a line tool. So you're drawing from the top of that circle over to the top of this circle. Make sure but you're getting the right place. There should be a little, see that? Those little symbols? Yeah, they appear together like that. That's the right place. So that means it's tangential to the edge. I don't want to draw a line across here, so let's press escape and quickly select the line tool again. So from the bottom here, draw a line, the same place. quite correct. I think that's it. No, that's it. And that's it. What you need to do now is obviously draw it on the other side, but I'll show you a quick trick for doing that. Instead of drawing the game, what we can do is actually reflect it across the middle. But what I want to do first is delete some of these lines. I don't need all of these lines anymore. So I'm going to use the trim tool, and I'm going to trim away the lines, which I no longer want. Over here, do the same. So this is just a trim tool, very useful tool to know about, where you can trim parts of lines in between where they intersect other lines. Okay, so to reflect this across here, what I first of all need to do, I need to have a central line. So basically an axis of reflection. So I'm just going to draw a line up, escape. I want that again to be just a construction line, so I'm going to select it and just make it a construction line. And then what I need to do is find the mirror tool, which is here. So you click on that and it tells you select a mirror line. So I'm going to click on that line just drew. Then it says select entities to be mirrored. So I'm going to select one by one these lines. And you see it simply reflects it across. Quick and easy, saves you time having to draw it again and getting dimensions and so on. Quite often when I'm drawing symmetrical objects, I will just draw half of it and then reflect it. It can be a very, very useful tool, this mirror tool. That's it. So accept the sketch. You've now got the finished sketch. Just to remember over here, this is all in one sketch. Alright, and you shouldn't see any other sketches on your first sketch. You should be drawing everything in the same sketch. Some people run into a lot of problems, and over here, if you see lots of sketches at the early stage of drawing an object like this, that's usually the problem. People somehow have made too many sketches. Just check over here. Yeah, it's just one sketch. Before you extrude anything, everything should be on one sketch. Right, extrude. Automatically did it for me. I don't want it that fat. These are quite thin bits of plastic, so I'm going to say 3. And that's it. What you can also do, another tool you learn about, is the fillet or the chamfer tool. I'm going to use the fillet tool this time. If you ever look really close at lots of plastic parts, usually the corners aren't perfect 90 degrees, like these sharp 90-degree edges. You usually have little fillet rounded off edges. Okay, so this will make sense in a minute. So I'm going to click on the fillet tool and I'm going to choose this line. You'll see it's rounded off that edge, but I've done it far too much. This distance was only 3 mil, so the radius really should be no bigger than 1.5. That looks better. Even to be honest, probably a little bit less. That looks better. See what it's done? It's just rounded off the corner, so it looks a little bit more realistic, like the real piece of plastic. Just going to go around the other side and do it as well. So usually when you click on one edge on this software, it will do the fillet, or it will round off the edge all the way around. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you have to select all the edges you want to be rounded off. Depends on the shape and the way it's been drawn. Okay, so just another useful tool to know about, the fillet tool for rounding off corners and edges. People seem to like fillets. And that's that piece done. Nice and easy. Right, so we'll move on to the next piece now. So that's the red arm, and now we want to create another part studio. It will appear, I'm going to rename it, and this is the yellow triangle. So again, just get a little bit more complex with the way you draw objects. So sketching tool, top or front, Click on the front. And that triangular piece, this is the piece we're talking about here. So you can see it's an equilateral triangle. So all sides are the same length and the angles in between are 60 degrees, of course. Yeah, and you can see it's got these holes. It's got a hole in the middle here, hole in the middle here, and holes in the corners. So the way I draw this is I draw a triangle from the center of this circle, the center of this circle, to the center of this circle. So it's not drawing. People often start this off by drawing outside of the triangle. Yeah, I think this is an easier way. So let's do it. So 60, the distance from the center of the hole to the other hole is 60, from my memory, I think. I'm going to press 60. And then I'm going to draw up at an angle, and I'm going to make that 60 as well. Then I'm going to draw down. That needs to meet, obviously, this point, and at the moment, it isn't 60, because we haven't set the angles. So all we need to do now is set the angles using the dimension tool. Choose the dimension tool, click on that edge, move the cursor down. You'll see this dimension appear. It can get a bit confusing, but you just move down until you reach the other line. It turns orange. Click once, and you'll see you can drag away a dimension. So all I should need to do here is change one angle to 60. Because that was dimension to 60, because that's dimension to 60, and you've made this angle now 60, everything else should be correct. Right, you can check it if you want. Yep, 60. 60. And obviously, if that's 60 and that's 60, this has to be 60. Because we know the interior angles in the triangle add up to 180. Okay. So again, this isn't the lines which will form the shape. These are construction lines between the holes. So what I want to do is select these lines. So I'm going to left click on the mouse, you'll drag away, holding down the left button on the mouse, and you can drag the box around all three lines and it will select all three lines. Then I want to press on the construction. So I'm making construction lines. Then I'm going to go over here, choose the circle tool. I'm going to turn the construction lines or construction tool off so I get solid lines, and go to the points of the triangle and draw out your holes again. So these are the holes first of all. There's one, if you remember, in the middle. Yeah, from between here to here, these holes sit in the middle. So again, very easy to do now because I can just find the center of that line. Yeah, look for the square, click and drag. Nope, too small. Come out of the circle tool and just roll over and double click, and it allows you to change the size. Find the center, so do the same on each side. Okay, so that's all the holes. So now what I need to do is, still using the circle tool, go back to the center and make a slightly bigger circle. I think it was about 18. Let's make it 18. We're just going to do this on the three corners of the circle. Then use the line tool, draw again from the edge of the circle down to this until you see that little symbol appear, that little tangential symbol. So it's not there. Now it is. Just always roll in, just check your lines. It's still fine sometimes. Yeah, like that one. That's not right. Can we move it? No. So what we have to do here, Control Z, and go back and redo that. This time I'm just going to zoom in when I do it. So I'm going to make sure. Yeah, I don't think that's it either. Yeah, these lines can be a little bit tricky sometimes. So let's draw a line from there to there. Make sure that end one's tangential. I believe we can go back up here, zoom in. The best way to do this is probably to use, so I'm going to click on that line. I'm going to shift select that one, so I've selected both of those lines. And hopefully, if I go to here, there's a button here called tangent. Yep. Alright. So that's the best way if you get problems like that. If it doesn't find, when you draw a line, if it doesn't find the edge of the circle, and you find it's overlapping, it needs to be like that. So that's the best way to do it. So again, let's just draw it from down here. This one might be a little bit easier. Okay. Yep. Again, just using the roller ball, roll in and roll out, and just check you've got the lines in the right place. Again, look at that little symbol appearing. Everyone see that? So it's a little angled line with the circle underneath it. That means tangential. Yeah. Jumped away from the circle there, so this time use this tool again. So we're going to hold down the shift key, select that line, and just to show you where it is, tangent, and it will find it for you. Go up here, that looks okay, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to select that line, and again, tangential. Yeah, moved it a little bit there, so it wasn't quite correct. You can even do that with these down here if you want to be perfect, but I think they should be okay. Yeah. And laying, as you did before, we use the trim tool and trim away the lines you no longer want. You don't technically have to trim away these lines. You can extrude this sketch without trimming away the unnecessary lines, but again, I just think it's good practice. It just makes it look neater. It's easier to see your drawing and so on. And I believe that's it. So I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to click on extrude again. Click on it and you'll see it extrude. So you know you haven't got any of the holes selected. And again, like the last part, I think I had the 3mm and accept it. As before, you can add a little fillet on the edge. You don't want a large fillet like that. You want a small, maybe 1mm. Make it look a bit more realistic. Select the bottom. Again, just roll back on the mouse, the roller ball, turn it around, just check you've got all the edges rounded off. And accept. And that is the yellow part. One thing I haven't shown you yet is how to add colour. Onshape isn't great for adding colour. On other software like Fusion, you can add materials that looks a lot more like the real thing. But to change the colour, down here, simply right click and edit appearance, and this changes to a yellow so we know what colour it is. There you go. You can go back to these other parts. Obviously this was red, so again, edit appearance, let's make it red, bright red, or more orangey red. You can choose, up to you. Experiment, very simple colour. Again, this was wood. There's no wood texture effect in Onshape as far as I know. If you find it, let me know. Right click, edit appearance, let's make this like a browny orange or something, browny colour. There you go. Do the same for all these parts. Okay, so the next tutorial, we shall look at the wheels, where it gets a little bit more complicated.